Welcome to Proven and Probable. I'm Maurice Jackson. Today we will cover precious metals, base metals, and resource stocks. And I'm honored to introduce our special guest. He's a wealth builder, investor, stock picker, and the author of my favorite books. He is your favorite and my favorite, the legendary Bob Moriarty of 321 Gold and 321energy.com. Mr. Moriarty, thank you for joining us today, sir.
Now, I seem to recognize that name, Maurice Jackson. I used to know somebody named Maurice Jackson. Are you related?
I believe I'm the same person that you're referring to, and all, the apology is from me to everyone. This is completely my fault that you have not been on this program. It is nothing personal. Just a number of things have been going on behind the scenes, and we're delighted to have you back on the show, sir.
Well, you look a lot older now than you did 5 years ago, the last time you talked to me.
Actually, we just surpassed 1 year ago. It was when the banking crisis occurred that we last had our conversation. On the air, that is. You and I correspond offline all the time, but online, yes, sir. So it's great to have you back because so much has changed, and I want to jump into that actually right now because the timing here couldn't have been better, and everyone listening wants to get some clarity and some guidance on the markets and some buying opportunities that we should be paying attention to. So let's begin with the big elephant in the room, and that's the markets. Bob, I can't put my finger on it, but something fishy is going on. In all of your investment career, have you ever seen the Dow, Bitcoin, and gold at an all-time high at the same time?
No, and something very definitely is going on. And of course, you know how much I follow sentiment. The strange thing is, last Friday, gold was up $40, and it didn't change the sentiment indicator at all, and the ETFs are still selling gold in spite of a $250 rise.
And some of those indicators, is one of them the VIX for you?
Yeah, of course.
And what is the VIX saying, just for someone who not familiar with the VIX by chance?
Look, hang on, be patient.
Take your time, sir.
The VIX is up. It got down to 13 3 weeks ago. It's at 38 now. But obviously, with the market behaving the way it's behaving, the VIX is a measure of sentiment, and it's indicating the market is being more volatile.
Speaking of gold, which has been on a tear the last month, reaching new highs daily. Yesterday, I conducted a word search for gold on Fox Business and CNN Business, and the results returned 0 matches. And yet gold is at an all-time high. Two-part question. Why is the mainstream media not addressing gold? And what is causing the price of gold to surge?
Okay, I'm going to answer the first question simply. Who cares? Okay, the fact that the mainstream media is not covering it is good for gold investors. Okay, the mainstream media's interest in anything is a sentiment indicator, and the fact they're not interested means gold's going to go a lot higher before they do get interested. And as to what's driving the price of gold, frankly, I think it's Russia and China. Why would you want to own the debt of your enemy? And the United States is making it obvious that they're literally at war with the entire world. And China and Russia are saying we don't want to own their used toilet paper.
Makes logical sense. Now, I have a suspicion. Again, it's just a suspicion. I can't prove it. But could it be that central banks are propping up the price of Bitcoin to distract us from gold?
I don't think so. Bitcoin is typically, it's pure sentiment. It's not an investment. It's never been an investment. You can't see it. You can't hold it. And it doesn't do very much. It's a speculation in the same category as Beanie Babies and the end result will be exactly the same as Beanie Babies. And everybody hates me when I say that. But investors have lost about $1.5 trillion betting on Bitcoin. And quite bluntly, I wouldn't touch any investment where you could lose that much money.
You referenced China. Can we go back briefly there? A mutual friend of ours, David Page, highly successful international businessman, does a lot of business in China. He wanted me to ask you, do you believe that, or he's hearing at least some rumblings from China, that they may have a stimulus package announcement coming? Any thoughts on that?
What kind of package?
A stimulus package?
Probably. The Chinese real estate market has collapsed, okay? And trillions of dollars have disappeared, and they've got to do something. So I think there's a good chance they may do that. They still have substantial reserves, so they can afford to do it. We can't afford to do it. We're probably going to have a stimulus package. You had talked about us not being in touch for a year on the web, okay, back to March of last year, and the banking crisis. At the bank term loan facility that the Fed put out ended on March 11th. So the last time we talked was last year's banking crisis, and this year's banking crisis is coming up shortly.
You heard it right here, folks, because this is something that, in my view, tends to get overlooked. Everyone thinks that the banking crisis has been resolved, and you just shared it right there, Bob. So be aware, and this, again, is one of those reasons why it's important for you to have a diversified portfolio. But I always say in diversification, I'm referring to having physical precious metals, and we're going to get some insights from Bob on that here in just a second. Germane to the price of gold is always the subject of war. Now, Bob, your sphere of influence goes beyond natural resources, and you're equally respected in the field of geopolitics. For a first-time listener, could you please share some of your military background so that we may have a better context and appreciation for my next question?
I'm not sure. Okay. It gets so crazy that it almost seems outrageous. I enlisted in the Marine Corps a week after I turned 18. I went to boot camp in San Diego. I was platoon honor man. I set a record at the rifle range that lasted for 18 months. I got accepted into flight training with no college. I was the youngest cadet in the entire program and became the youngest naval aviator in Vietnam. I served in the Marine Corps for 6 years. I was in Vietnam for 20 months. I flew, I think, 832 missions in about 6 or 7 different airplanes. I flew the F-4, the O-1C, the O-1G, the S-2, the C-1, and the C-47, and the OV-10, and the CH-46.
So you're a very well-decorated pilot, and you have experience. So this isn't just from a theoretical standpoint. You've been there, you've done that, you've experienced the absolute worst. Last week, you shared something with me that that had your attention, and was excuse the background noise here for 1 second, folks. Got some looks like a trash truck driver is confused on where he's going, so forgive the beeping here for 1 second. Let's see if
he's driving into your parking lot, yeah. You got a problem.
All right. Well, last week you shared with me that we could very likely see the conflict in Israel broaden beyond the borders of Israel. What are some of your sources telling you, and what is some of your research also indicating?
Well, here's what happened. Israel has done so many stupid things in the last 6 months that it's really hard to keep track of them all. They set as a goal to defeat Hamas, but they never mentioned that they actually set Hamas up in the first place, and it was the democratically elected government of Gaza. And Hamas actually had a right under international law to try to attack the people who were keeping them in the world's largest open-air prison. So Benjamin Netanyahu said that he was going to eliminate Hamas, but by killing somewhere between 35 and 50,000 people in Gaza, Benjamin Netanyahu has taken Hamas from 30,000 people to probably 150 or 200,000 people, because everybody wants to sign up to fight Israel. The world, amazingly enough, even though the ICJ has ruled that it appears that Israel has committed acts of war and genocide, Europe certainly has ignored it. And then Israel bombed and killed 7 foreigners who were trying to deliver aid to Gaza. And because they weren't Muslim and they weren't Arab, the world woke up and said, that's wrong, okay? And Israel says it was a mistake, but there were actually 3 separate attacks that killed these 7 people. And then to make things even worse, they violated international law again by attacking the Iranian embassy in Syria. And what's happening is the United States is trying to drag the United States into World War III. They know that Iran will react. And when they react, Israel's going to say, oh, we're the victims. Poor us. Everybody hates us. Nobody loves us. I'm going to eat a worm. When in fact, they are the aggressor all of the time. And attacking an embassy is an act of war. So they committed an act of war, and they know Iran is going to react. And then Israel wants the United States to fight another war for them. And like every other war the United States has fought for Israel, we're going to lose.
So from a probability of 1 to 10, and you referenced a World War III here, potential here, where do you see it on the scale of 1 to 10?
Somewhere between 12 and 13.
Okay. It's not a laughing matter, but these are some serious...
No, it's absolutely serious. Israel is saying they are going to bomb Iran's nuclear facilities. Now, one of the things that your listeners need to know is that 18 U.S. intelligence agencies have reported twice that Iran does not have a nuclear weapons program. So anytime you hear anyone talking about Iran's nuclear weapons program, all they're doing is repeating Israel's propaganda. Okay, there is no nuclear weapons program. Now, let me point something out, and many, many times, and in my books, I've tried to suggest to people, you can figure out what's going on and what's going to happen just by asking the right question. Now, I'll ask you again, what's more important, the question or the answer?
Yeah, the question.
Why?
Well, because it leads to the genesis of, to me, the everything. Okay.
If you ask the wrong question, what do you get?
Well, you're going to get the wrong answer or not the information you're looking for.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you, and actually you've got an advantage because of your military connections. How does a country of 9 million people defeat a country of 90 million people?
Well, you're putting me on the spot here.
No, that's simple.
It could be it could be technology, it could be...
Nope.
Give it to us, Bob.
Okay, they either use nuclear weapons or they bring in their attack chihuahua.
And give us the attack chihuahua in this situation.
The U.S.?
The U.S. Speaking of geopolitics, I wanted to get your viewpoints on this one. Occurred a couple of weeks ago here. The situation in Moscow, in Russia, with ISIS attacking. Number one, would you have expected a response by now from Russia?
ISIS didn't attack Russia.
And give us, again, expand on that for us, because there's a lot of people that they're watching the mainstream media. They're seeing the ISIS claim to have responsibility, and you're saying something juxtaposed to that.
Okay. Again, I'm going to ask you kind of a trick question. What single person was most responsible for the coup d'etat in Ukraine in 2014?
That would be not keeping up with their politics, but was it Zelensky?
No, it'd be Victoria Nuland.
Okay.
Okay. Victoria Nuland came out twice in the months before the attack in Moscow and warned Putin that there were some nasty surprises coming. Victoria Nuland is one of those people that's so evil. When she comes up with an evil plan, she just has to share it with us so we know it was her. The attack on Moscow was the CIA. It's a typical chicken shit, meaningless attack just to piss people off. And that's all the CIA does. And I worked with the CIA in Vietnam, and they haven't changed in 60 years.
Now, out of all that you said here, for someone, again, it's a first-time listener, Bob, just for the record, who wins when it comes to war?
Nobody.
And again, you're not advocating war, and that's what I appreciate also in this context, but very well stated. No one wins when it comes to war. Now, leaving gold, silver quietly is making a move up to $28, along with copper surpassing $4. And these prices are moving, or I should say, are these prices moving for the same reason as gold?
Yes, absolutely. And interestingly enough, and you're a little bit wrong, silver actually hit like $28.35 today. Silver just shot up, and copper is up big time. But here's what's important to understand. While we have had record highs in the Dow and the S&P, compared to the Dow and the S&P, commodities are the lowest price they've ever been in history. And compared to commodities, gold shares are the lowest they've ever been in history. And you know I'm a contrarian, so you invest in what everybody hates. And right now, everybody hates gold shares. But zinc has gone from, I think, $1.09 to, I think, $1.21 in the last week. Okay, so copper's up, zinc's up, lead's up, silver's up, gold's up, and I'll offer you something that's a little bit scary. It could be because the powers that be see a potential World War III, and that would scare the hell out of me. And I wrote a piece today. And I absolutely blame Israel, and I absolutely blame the U.S. for creating the situation. And the very last sentence of the article, I said, dead people don't need gold and silver.
Well, I'm going to put a link to that, your musing there, to the bottom of this interview here. Bob, before we get into resource stocks, you just touched on it. What precious metals are you buying right now, and why?
Strange enough, and you'll like this because we've been through this before. What was it I was recommending 5 or 6 years ago just because it was cheap?
Rhodium?
Okay, and what did rhodium do in terms of price?
Well, you were calling it in the 500s, if I'm not mistaken, and it jumped all the way up to 29,000.
Exactly. Okay, that's the kind of investment you do one of in your lifetime, and you retire and your kids retire. Now, why is it that you should always fly first class?
I would say networking potentials, opportunities. No?
You should fly first class because if you don't, your kids will.
Okay. Okay. Point well taken on that one. Now, so rhodium was 5 years ago. The price of rhodium right now is around 5,000. Are you looking at platinum, palladium, or is it silver?
Well, I'm going to ask you again, and you know me and you follow those. Which of the precious metals is the cheapest relative to the rest?
I'm going to say platinum.
Thank you. You just answered your own question. Platinum's dirt cheap. It isn't even $1,000, and it's gone up about $100 in the last week or two. Platinum is a sleeper, and I think it's going to do the same thing as rhodium. I don't think it's going to go up 56-fold, but I think it's going to go up.
And for our audience members, if you're looking to buy precious metals, give me a call directly at 855-505 1900. I'm a licensed broker for Miles Franklin Precious Metals Investments. Again, that number is 855-505-1900, and that goes directly to my phone, not a call center. Speaking of resource stocks, what companies have your attention at the moment?
All of them.
Give us some specific ones.
Well, here's what's crazy. Let's talk about the spectrum. Back in let me think when it was. Back in 2008, when gold and silver and resource stocks crashed, there was a stock that I followed that did a Hail Mary private placement at a nickel. And I knew the company fairly well, and I had been to their projects 10 and half a dozen times. They went from 5 cents to $5. And I was really kind of amazed at it because they were doing some really stupid stuff. They spent $90 million to define 500,000 ounces of gold. And anybody that looked at it said, when you start spending $180 an ounce to define gold, you're run by idiots. And they were. They went from $5 a share into bankruptcy. We're going to see moves. So, okay, two situations. One situation is the idiots in Israel, the United States managed to start World War III, and in that case, all bets are off. And the other situation is if the world is recognized and we've got a serious financial problem and the banking system's about to blow up, you're going to see much higher gold and silver. And all these people that went into Bitcoin and all these people that went into the AI stocks are going to move into gold and silver. And those markets are so small. I'll ask you another trick question. What's the total market value of all the cryptocurrencies?
I don't have that number, but it is enormous.
It's over $2.5 trillion. Okay. It is so big that it's staggering, and nobody gets it. There's 9,000 variations of Bitcoin, and somebody thinks every one of them is going to succeed, and they can't. It's like having a town of 50,000 people with 9,000 ice cream parlors. You want to open an ice cream parlor? You're going to lose your shirt.
Now, speaking of the opportunity that's presented before us, though, when you're looking at the natural resource space and the market cap of all those companies juxtaposed to cryptocurrencies, what is that?
Oh, it's so small it's almost meaningless. I use sentiment. I go to CEO.ca, and CEO.ca, if you put in the symbol for the stock that you're interested in looking into, it shows you how many people are online at the same time. And lots of the stocks that I follow, there'll be 2 or 3 people tracking.
Yeah.
It's only been the last week or two that anything has picked up. Now, I wrote about Newfound Gold, and I wrote about West Red Lake Gold on Thursday, and they're up 15 or 20% since then on enormous volume. We are starting to see money coming into the space, but still, sentiment says people are so skeptical, it's going to take much higher prices in the metals and much higher, far higher prices, hundreds of percent higher in the stocks before people wake up.
Speaking of another company whose stock is seeing a resurgence here is Dolly Varden Silver. Any comments on Dolly Varden?
I love Dolly Varden Silver. Strange enough, of the physical precious metals, most of the money that I've got is in silver, first of all, platinum, second of all, and I've got some gold sovereigns. But Dolly Varden is one of the best silver projects around. Great management. The numbers coming out of their drill results are absolutely spectacular, and they're going to do very well. All of the silver stocks, except the ones in Mexico, are going to do really well. Another silver stock that I really love the management of is Redneck Silver, and they were down in Mexico looking at properties that Peter McGaugh and I looked at literally 15 years ago. He was part of those, and Mexico's turned stupid, so they had to go to Plan B and move their entire operation to the United States. But they're still a great company.
And the ticker symbol for Dolly Varden is D as in Delta, V as in Victor, and the CEO is everyone's favorite, Sean Kun Kun. And they just had Eric Sprott put in another, $15 million in as a strategic investor, and a 7% float. And you referenced high grade. It is a consistent theme with every press release on Dolly Varden Silver. Let's switch gears to Lion One. Any comments?
Okay, here's the problem. When resource stocks go down, they get dumped just because they're liquid. And Lion One was liquid. They're in production now. They have total support of the government in Fiji. They've got an alkaline deposit. They're going to end up with somewhere between 5 and 10 million ounces of gold. And everybody hates them because Wally did 2 or 3 placements at exactly the wrong time, and it clobbered stock. That is very bad for existing Lion One shareholders. However, it's an incredible opportunity for potential Lion One investors. Lion One has a lot of gold. There's an identical deposit 40 kilometers away called Vaticola, and we know exactly what's going to happen. Vaticola's been in production since, I think, 1932, and they produced 11 million ounces. Now, I think they've produced 8 million ounces, and they've got resources of another 3 million ounces. So Lion One's got a lot of gold, but they're at the point where people make tiny mistakes and the market beats the crap out of them. But I own a lot of Lion One, and I haven't sold any of it. And I would be happy to own more if I was rich instead of just handsome. Why are you laughing? You're not supposed to laugh.
I saw my reflection. That's why I'm laughing. Okay. And the ticker symbol for Lion One Metals is Lima Indigo Oscar, and that's liononemetals.com. All right. Switching gears. Bob, we received several questions from our subscribers. Do you have time to share some more of your wisdom there?
Nah.
You're done for the day?
Don't be silly, of course. Okay. Strange enough, listening to your subscribers, I think, is one of the most valuable things you do. And I'm far more interested in what they want to know about than what I want to know about. I think the questions are great, and I highly encourage them.
All right, sir, let's begin. First question, who inspired you growing up?
Strange enough, I was inspired because my parents couldn't hold a job. And I mean that literally. We moved virtually every year. So I don't have any friends from when I was 6 years old. I had to make new friends sometimes 2 or 3 times a year, every year until I think I was 15 or 16 years old. And when you were forced to be alone, you have to learn to think for yourself. So I had a childhood that I hated. However, I've always been a natural contrarian, and that's been very valuable to me.
We share a similar background, and I did not know that about you. So I'm glad we asked the question. All right. Next question. What is a question that's never been asked of you that you wish someone would ask?
Actually, somebody kind of hinted at it once. I used to ferry airplanes all over the world. I took 240 small planes from the United States to Australia, Japan, New Zealand, Indonesia, France, Germany, Switzerland, Italy, South Africa. And the question that any time I spoke, the question everybody wanted to ask was it true that ferry pilots had a girlfriend at every airport? and candidly, I can't answer the question because I've never been to every airport.
You sound like a politician there.
It's dazzling with free, it's baffling with bullshit.
All right, next question for you, sir. What is your biggest regret in life? These are some tough questions here.
Barbara dying.
Yes, that was very difficult. And may she rest in peace. But she was an amazing woman, and I know she was the love of your life. Yes,
she was absolutely fun.
Yes. Next question for you, sir. And I think you answered. So, well, let's see. You already answered this one, but actually, let's go into a little bit here. Is Bob buying mining or exploration companies right now? And if exploration, early stage or development companies? We kind of hinted towards that, but
yes.
Okay. This is from a parent in North Carolina, which is actually where I am right now. I'm a huge fan of Bob Moriarty. Bob, I'm extremely concerned about the future of our country, specifically my children and grandchildren's future. Is there a correlation between our national debt and declining currency and the declining morals and values of our country? If yes, what is Bob's solution for our nation, and what can we do as parents/grandparents?
Interestingly enough, that she's asked that question in a very good way, and it's something that I've spent years thinking about. Now, when you need to determine the answer to a question, one of the smartest things you can do is look and ask yourself who has had a similar situation and what did they do to resolve it. I'm not smart enough to invent solutions, okay? I'm knowledgeable because I read 200 books a year, and I've done it for 65 years. But being knowledgeable is not the same thing as being smart. In 1789, a country had a revolution. What was the country?
We're talking about France?
Thank you. How did they come out of the revolution? Who led them out of the revolution?
Napoleon.
Okay. How did he do it?
Not a history major here, so you're going to have to help me out. I answered the first two, though.
Okay. Literally, Louis XVI bankrupted France by participating in the American Revolutionary War. And to give France credit, the Americans, the colonialists, would have lost the war if France had not gotten involved. So we could say it was a good thing that France got involved. But in fact, wars, nobody wins any war. It's just a question of how much each side loses. And France's participation in the American Revolution, which they didn't have to do, bankrupted France, and the people in Paris couldn't afford wheat. So they started a revolution in 1789. They went through two different currencies, the assignat and then the mandat, and both of them, they printed money like crazy, which is exactly what the United States is doing right now. Mm-hmm. And then Napoleon realized conditions were totally out of control in France, so he staged a counter-revolution. He was a colonel in the French army. He staged a counter-revolution, and he, in fact, shot a lot of people, okay? It was a bloody counter-revolution. And the first thing he did is go back to honest money. Now, I absolutely believe that you need a fixed value for a meter, you need a fixed value for a liter, you need a fixed value for a gram. And if all of those are true, why wouldn't you need a fixed value for your money? And I think you do need a fixed value for money. And once you lose track of the value of money, you have no idea of what value is for anything. And I certainly see it in the corruption, which is absolutely staggering to me, not only in the United States, but certainly in Europe. Europe's run by a bunch of brain-dead idiots. Why they allowed the United States to drag them into a war supporting the most corrupt country in Europe is totally beyond me. and Zelensky's a crackhead. Why would you give a crackhead money? And we continue to do that. So the Ukrainian war has killed 700,000 Ukrainian soldiers, which I think is a tragedy. And Ukraine has lost the war, and the United States and NATO are saying more. Now, what did Blinken say about Ukraine and how it affected the United States? He said this back in December.
Again, I don't follow the Ukrainian situation. I have a different viewpoint than most people, so I don't follow it. I may get into that in just a second, but I haven't followed it. You'll have to forgive me.
Okay, there's this really great website called 321 Gold, and you should read all the crap that guy writes, because he's a handsome thing.
So what was it? Yeah, what did Blinken share or convey?
Blinken said that the war in Ukraine was a win-win for the United States because it created jobs. 90% of the money that was being donated to Ukraine actually went to the United States, to the military-industrial complex, and it created lots of jobs. And of course, my question is, how many Ukrainians do you have to kill to generate one job in the United States? That's one of the sickest things I have ever heard any politician say, and to equate 700,000 dead Ukrainian soldiers with creation of jobs in the United States, that is the mark of an evil, vicious person.
Well, I might get some kudos from you on this one, at least, because it reminds me of Dwight D. Eisenhower referencing the military-industrial complex. And there you have it right there.
Well, McCarthy did the same thing. Both of them understood how dangerous the military-industrial complex is. And quite bluntly, the military-industrial complex is running the United States, and they don't care how many people they kill. I'll ask you another trick question. What could the United States do to end the genocide in Gaza in one day?
I thought you were going to ask me about Ukraine, because I was going to say we're not going to join NATO. But
strange enough, it's true of Ukraine too. But how could they end the genocide in Gaza? One day, one decision.
It's always something simple, and I overlook it with you, so please give it to me, because I'm going to struggle.
I call up Benjamin Netanyahu, who said, tear up your Platinum American Express card, we just canceled your credit. While Biden is sitting there telling the world he cares about the murder of innocent civilians, he's shipping 2,000 pound bombs to Israel that Israel is using to kill innocent civilians. Now, I flew 125 missions in the F-4 and about 700 missions in the Bird Dog, and I never dropped or I never controlled a single 2,000 pound bomb because it was far too big. In the F-4, we carried 10 500 pound bombs, or typically 500 pound bombs and 5 napalms. But I've dropped hundreds of bombs, and as a forward air controller, I've controlled thousands of bombs, and there was never a need for a 2,000 pound bomb. It's literally overkill.
Well, thank you for putting that to some type of perspective for us. I want to go back and make sure we answered the question, the young lady's question here, and that is the solution. Partly, I think, is what you were alluding to. Is it having precious metals, because you referenced currency not having a measure that is consistent? So would it be owning precious metals as part of that solution?
Actually not. Okay. What is money in simple terms?
Medium of exchange, store of value.
That's part of it. Money is anything that two people agree is money. It can be salt. It can be cattle. It can be big round rocks with a hole in it. It can be wampum. There's just all kinds of things that money can be. But the very best money is money that has a fixed value that is accepted everywhere. And that, of course, has been true for 5,000 years of gold. We have corruption in the United States and Europe and the world because the level of debt, which is totally out of control, and we need to go back to honest money. And we could solve 100% of the corruption problem. We could totally devastate the World Economic Forum, which wants to turn us into slaves and masters, just by going back to honest money. And the best honest money out there is gold and silver.
Next question comes from, well, you answered the question, but I believe it's a good question still to bring up, and that is, I can't believe that Bob Moriarty is not a household name in this nation. Why are there people who provide no utility in society, such as actors and athletes, regarded so highly, and yet Bob Moriarty, a leader and visionary, and one who provides so much intellectual content, is held in the background? I believe you're one of the most underappreciated minds that the world has not yet recognized. Have you always been an independent thinker, and was there a moment in your life that made you a contrarian? You answered that for us, but I want to give kudos to you and what the listener there shared about you. Unless you wanted to comment some more on that, sir.
If that's a woman, I want to marry her.
Okay.
Okay, here's the deal. And it's strange enough, the reason I like these listener questions is they bring up stuff that we don't think about sometimes. The reason that celebrities and actors and actresses and sports players, the reason that people look up to them is because they're visible. But what's happening right now is there is this shift towards far more visibility to people who have always been ignored before. I think that Twitter and Substack are exceptionally valuable because they give people a voice who didn't have a voice before. And Substack is a great invention, and it's one of those sink or swim. If you've got something to say that people want to hear, they've got a platform for you. And there's 10 or 15 people that I subscribe to and am quite happy to pay because what they've got to say is so interesting. I avoided doing video interviews for years because, frankly, it doesn't put a penny in my pocket, and I know how I feel. So, I can talk to myself and learn lots of interesting things. I have the most interesting conversations with myself. But what I've discovered is that there are a lot of people who like listening to me. I was kind of hoping they liked looking at me, but unfortunately I haven't run into that yet.
Well, hey, you have a haircut since last time, by the way.
Yeah. I hate it. It's too damn short.
Okay. Next question or comment. I mean this in the most respectful way, but how does Bob have so much moxie and determination at his age? You are a true Renaissance man, and I absolutely love it. So that's a comment there.
Part of it's landing on aircraft carriers when I was 19 years old.
That's the secret there?
Yeah.
Okay. Here's a good one. This was one that really got my attention here. I like this one the most, probably. I'm in my 20s, and I recently found your work on this channel. I'm thoroughly impressed with your commentary, and I find it intellectually enlightening and entertaining. For those of us who wish to be the next Bob Moriarty, what words of wisdom would you share with us? I like that one.
Read as many books as you can.
Speaking of that, this was not a question, but I'm aware of this. You, sir, are a speed reader, and you referenced earlier, probably many of us glanced over it, you shared you read how many books per year?
200.
That is astounding.
Actually, the funny thing is that's probably on the low side, because when I was ferrying airplanes, I could read 10 books in a week, okay? I would go into an airport, I would look at all the paperback books that they had in stock, and I read that one, read that one, read that one, read that one, read that one. The beauty about reading is that every single book has something of value. Now, my mother taught my twin brother and I how to read before we started school. The way we teach children to read is exceptionally non-productive. Okay, everybody could be a speed reader if they were taught reading the right way, and consuming 130,000 books. You don't have to be smart. You just have to be knowledgeable.
That's just quite. I'm still mind blown by that. You referenced there was some type of platform that teaches how to speed read in one of our previous interviews, if I'm not mistaken. Did you not? There was a reference point you gave to
someone who wanted to there are courses for learning speed reading. There is nothing that will help you learn across the board. If I had 5 or 6 year old children right now, I would have them in a speed reading course. That's the most valuable education skill you could possibly have.
Yeah, I have 3 little ones, and I wish they would have had that course. So I'm going to look into that because I personally want to pursue that myself. Now, regarding energy, I know that you're not a fan of uranium. This is again another question here, not from me. Why? And is there an alternative energy that you prefer?
Strange enough, the whole energy issue is a misnomer of sorts. Climate change is fraud. When they were talking about global cooling, which goes back to about 1970, 97% of the predictions made by the experts were wrong. So they went to global warming. And again, 97% of the predictions about global warming from the experts were wrong. So since the idiots behind global cooling were wrong and the idiots behind global warming were wrong, and the people who would really like to control us needed to come up with a solution, they came up with climate change. So the beauty about climate change, you can't argue about climate change.
No, you can't.
The Earth is 4.5 million years old, roughly, and the climate's changed every year for 4.5 billion years. The climate change is a hoax. The idea that electric vehicles and wind power and solar energy is a solution is absolute rubbish. It will decrease the standard of living of people. We've got incredible efficiency in gasoline and diesel-powered vehicles, and you need carbon energy to mine. Okay, so if you want silicone for use in green energy, or nickel or cobalt or lithium, it takes a lot of carbon-based energy to produce that. People are just now waking up to what a fraud electric vehicles are. I didn't realize this, but there are 2 things that cause electric vehicles to actually pollute more than liquid fuel. You have any idea what they are? Electric vehicles produce more pollution. And what causes it?
Is it not the fabrication of the vehicle itself?
No, that's a substantial issue that's pretty much ignored by the green energy fools. But the cars are much heavier because of the batteries, and that causes a lot more wear on the tires, a lot more wear on the disc brakes. So the crazy thing is electric vehicles are more polluting than gasoline and diesel-powered vehicles. We have been sold a bill of goods on climate change. There's a lot of young people who absolutely believe it, and it's absolute rubbish.
Mm-hmm. Now, just for the record, why don't you? My understanding is correct, or I believe my understanding is correct, that you're not a fan of uranium, correct? And that was within that question.
The issue that I have with uranium is, what do you do with the uranium after it's no longer suitable for energy? Okay, and because the half-life of uranium is so long, I'm not sure we've solved all of the issues. Uranium is the least polluting and cheapest form of energy, and it is so far superior than wind power or solar or electric vehicles. That is insane that people are shutting down power plants. The issue with uranium is that every plant has to be designed in every plant is custom. And if you design automobiles the same way, automobiles would cost $10,000. We need to solve the pollution problem, and we need to solve the problem of the expense of creating them in the first place. I think that small portable uranium nuclear power stations are a very viable solution for the future. But we've got far more oil and natural gas than people realize. Natural gas is absolutely the cleanest form of energy. It only produces CO2 and water, and frankly, CO2 is one of the most valuable gases. It's not a pollutant. It's exactly the opposite. We need CO2 for plants to survive.
Mm-hmm. You know, speaking of clean energy, let's talk about some catalytic metals that prevent that, and that is, what is causing the price of palladium to come down, and why hasn't the price of platinum responded?
People confuse the use of palladium and platinum in catalytic converters, and the way the narrative has gone is that platinum is used for diesel vehicles and they're not popular, so the demand for platinum has gone down, and palladium is used for a gasoline-powered vehicle, and that's why the price went up. Actually, there's a lot more palladium around than there is platinum, so the ratio used to be $400 palladium and $1,000 platinum, and it's reversed. I think palladium's about $1,200 now, and platinum's just short of $1,000. In fact, both platinum and palladium are suitable for catalytic converters, and that's why when people wake up, the price of platinum is going to go a lot higher.
Next question. There was a lot of chatter regarding the BRICS making a major announcement back in August regarding a gold-backed currency. Was that a coordinated head fake, or do you believe it was a test to see how the market would respond?
I think it was both, actually. I think they will go to a gold standard because, frankly, it's the only reasonable, quick solution. If you go back to the banking situation a year ago, when 3 out of the 4 biggest banks that collapsed in U.S. history collapsed in March of last year, the Fed came out with the bank term loan facility and loaned money to the banks for their used toilet paper. And then the Fed came back and ended that program on March 11th of this year. So all the banks have been handed their used toilet paper back, and they've handed the T-bills and T-bonds back to the Fed. The banking system is in terrible, terrible condition in the United States, and I think it has to collapse. I mean, it's underwater when you look at the assets of all the banks in the United States. The actual total value is negative. So at some point in time, there's going to be a crisis. And I think it's fairly soon.
Next question. If a gold-backed currency were to be issued, what type of repercussions would we see in the price of gold and or precious metals? And what would happen to fiat currencies?
Oh, well, fiat currencies are they're in the crapper right now. It's a rush to the bottom. You raised a good question because everybody forgets this. When you're talking about the price of gold, how many commodities are you talking about?
Well, that's an interesting question. So I would logically think one, but that's obviously not the answer.
We have to, what's it quoted in?
Well, it's quoted in a currency or a basket of different currencies, but...
If you're talking about the U.S. dollar price of gold, you've got gold, but you've got the U.S. dollar. Okay, so you're talking about two different commodities. It's a question that you really can't answer, because if all fiat currencies go to zero, the value of gold goes to infinity. I'm not as concerned about what the price of gold will go to as to it will give a backing to a real economy as opposed to a fake economy. I believe these numbers are more or less correct. Manufacturing in the United States is somewhere between 8 and 12% of the economy, and shuffling pieces of paper, the financial system, is about 30% of the economy. And that's absurd.
Yeah, that's out of whack.
Like, yeah, exactly. It's like saying you've got an Indian casino and a hairdressing salon in a town, and that's the economy. Indian casinos and hairdressing salons are not an economy. You need a real economy, and you need to produce something of value, either grow it or manufacture it or mine it, to have wealth. Shuffling pieces of paper does not create wealth.
Interrelated question here. What are the chances that there will be a digitally backed currency? And what will be the impact, again, on precious metals?
100% chance, and there's also 100% chance that it will fail. Okay. It's another variation of fiat currencies, and if debt is the problem, it's not an issue of what kind of fiat currency the debt is in. It's an issue of it's fake money. Okay. Central banks would love to have central bank digital currencies. And what the guys behind the cryptocurrencies don't understand is the central bank digital currencies are not blockchain, and they're not going to take Bitcoin or Doggy Coin or any of the other 9,000 variations. The central bank digital currencies will be tried, and then they'll fail.
Well, and you just referenced blockchain. Next question. I know you don't like cryptocurrencies. Do you have any views on blockchain? And I'm assuming that's from an investment standpoint, possibly, as I would infer that question to be.
Not from an investment point of view, but from a financial point of view, in terms of, is it useful? Absolutely. It's handy. It's just not money. Okay, the idea that you've got this remote accounting system, it's somehow different than a centralized accounting system. It's an accounting system. That's all it is. I've got an accounting system on my computer. It costs $79. I mean, and it's worth every cent. A remotely controlled accounting system is worth $79.
All right. I think we're here on our last question. In closing, what would you like to say to the audience?
2024 is going to be an interesting year. It may go down in history, if there is history a year from now, as one of the most important years in history. The American election has gone beyond being a farce. The war in Ukraine was lost in March of 2022. The war in Gaza is a genocide. Israel's totally out of control. It's a rogue state. The United States is totally out of control. It's a rogue state. And the EU is run by idiots. And that's the good news.
What's the bad news?
All of the above.
All of the above, yes. Well, Bob, thank you so much for your time, your insights, your wisdom. It's been too long. I want to get you back on the show as soon as we can again. I want to apologize to everyone, I'm sorry, is that, we didn't have an opportunity to get you on the show here. It's been over a year, and you are such a beacon of hope and inspiration to so many of us. And I just want to share personally right now, I would not be proven improbable. We would not be where we are without you. And
you left out the most important issue.
And what is that, sir?
I'm really funny.
Well, that too. You actually are. I'm so used to you being serious. You catch me off guard, and my wife finds you hilarious, by the way. And by the way, I have to give credit to my wife. She has been poking me in the side, saying, you need to get Bob on the show. And I know, sweetheart, I just have some other things going on, and so I thank her for that. But I want to go back to you. You have been such an inspiration. You've helped us grow. You've helped me grow as a person, and I am so appreciative of everything you've done for my family and our subscribers. I think share the same sentiment. So thank you so much, Mr. Moriarty.
Well, thank you. It's always a pleasure talking to you. You know that.
Bob, if somebody wants to find your work, give us that website, please.
Amazon.
Well, speaking of that, let's close on that note. On Amazon, reference that you are a world-renowned author. You have written my favorite books. By the way, 2 days ago, I was downstairs with my son, and he shared, "Hey, Dad, look on my desk there next to my computer." And I said, "What is it?" He said, "Just lift up the black shirt there." And there was your book. He said, "I'm rereading it right now." And he was reading Nobody Knows Anything. And I was like, "There you go, son." He said, "I love that book."
Well, I'm going to tell you something. As a guy who has read a lot of books, I'm going to tell you something that's interesting. The real measure of a book is not that people read it. The real measure of a book is how many times they read it. And I'll be candid, I pick up my books sometimes because I'm looking for a quote, and I'll be flipping through it thinking, damn, this guy really gets it. And of course, I'm the guy who wrote the book in the first place, but I forget what's in the book. I mean, I will say I'm real proud of those books. I think they're good books.
I second that. I've benefited from them financially, personally, intellectually, you name it. They check off all the boxes. Your work can be found on Amazon. Also, coincidentally, if you go to provenandprobable.com, which is my website, ladies and gentlemen, if you just look under the education tab, you're going to see most of Mr. Moriarty's books right there, and it'll take you directly to Amazon. So we encourage you to visit 321gold.com and or provenandprobable.com. Mr. Moriarty, it's been an absolute delight to speak with you. Wishing you the absolute best, sir.
We got to do this more often than once a friggin' year. I mean, Jesus, give me a break.
What are you doing tomorrow?
I don't know. I'm not sure we're going to be around tomorrow.
Well, you take care, sir. We'll have you back on before you know it.
Okay, good deal.
Have a good one, sir. Bye-bye.
Thanks, sir. Bye.
The information presented on Proven and Probable is provided for educational and informational purposes only, without any express or implied warranty of any kind, including warranties of accuracy, completeness, or fitness for any particular purpose. The information is not intended to be and does not constitute financial, investment, or trading advice, or any other advice. You should not make any financial, investment, or trading decision based on any of the information presented without first undertaking independent due diligence and consultation with a professional broker or competent financial advisor.